In this episode, I'm going to discuss a short story written by Haruki Murakami. It's called Men Without Women. And in fact, the title of the book, which the story is part of, is also called Men Without Women. So let's briefly first talk about this idea, the idea of men without women. Because many decades ago, in the last century, in fact, Hemingway also wrote a collection of short stories which had the same title, Men Without Women. What does it mean? It means what happens to men when they don't have or they lose the presence of a woman in their life. What happens to them? How do they behave? Does it affect their personality, their behavior, their character? And in almost all these stories, whether Hemingway or Murakami, you find this sense of loss, sense of even grief. And when you read these stories, you feel that pain, you feel that loss. But the beauty of their writing, whether Hemingway or Murakami, it's that you can see the beauty of it. You can see the beauty of grief also. There's certain beauty in sadness which artists or writers, they bring out. So now let's come back to the story Men Without Women. It's the last story in the collection, and it also kind of summarizes the whole idea of men without women. The plot is very simple, very straightforward. There's nothing much that happened. But then the character, the protagonist, he is thinking about the woman he has just lost. And during his recollection, his introspection, we learn a lot about these things, this idea of men without women. And when I discuss this story now, I'm also going to discuss the narrative or the writing style of Murakami, because of late I've seen a lot of reviewers criticizing Murakami's writing, especially in this particular book, Men Without Women, that is. They say that it's problematic, it's a bit sexist, all those things, all those labels have been put on Murakami. And a lot of times I don't really agree with that mindset. I think, especially in fiction, when you are entering a world of fiction, you're entering the head of a character, the way he sees things or she sees things. And if that character sees it that way, whether they generalize certain things, they stereotype women in a certain way, that's okay. As long as you are comfortable, you are able to relate and understand the character, and you see the consistency there, you see the consistency in the plot, in writing, everything, I don't think that should be an issue. But there will be certain things where I thought writing wasn't really impressive. So I'll give you those examples as and when they come. In fact, they come from the very first paragraph itself. Let me start with the first paragraph, and the story begins. It says, "The call came in after 1 a.m. and woke me up. Phones ringing in the middle of the night always sound harsh and grating, like some savage metal tool out to destroy the world." Now this simile or this comparison here, it might feel just a normal writing routine, but it gets a bit repetitive during the course of the story. Every few paragraphs you find these such comparisons being made. Something happens and writer writes like this is happening like something else. So those comparisons at some point, and that's probably one or two things among the one or two things which I think I can be critical of. So coming back to the story, what happens? The protagonist rather, wakes up at the middle of the night. There's a phone call, and he goes to receive it. And what happens there? There's the voice on the other side comes from a man, and the voice says that this woman has died. In fact, she has committed suicide. And the person that who's on the call is her husband. And he tells the protagonist that she committed suicide last week. And he says, in any case, I thought I should let you know. In any case. That's an interesting phrase the husband uses in this case. And it's a phrase that kind of echoes in the mind of the protagonist for some time, and it keeps coming up. What does it mean really? In any case, I thought I should let you know. It raises a lot of questions there. What does he mean? So now we come back to the protagonist, and he starts thinking about why she would have committed suicide. And now we start to learn about his relationship with that woman. He dated her many years ago, and then they broke up, and then never really talked, never remained in contact. And that's it. So he has all these questions in his head. Why her husband knows about him, and why is he calling him now when she has committed suicide? What does he want to convey with that message, especially by waking him up at the middle of the night? So these are all kind of thoughts and questions that arise in the mind of the protagonist. And he hangs up, comes back to bed, is sleeping next to his wife. The wife asks, who was it? Who called? Who died? What were you talking about? And he says that nothing really, probably a wrong number. And when he says that, he knows that his wife hasn't bought it. But that's the complexity of these adult relationships. You know you're lying, and you know that the other person also knows it, but then you go ahead with it. That's the complexity. That's the beauty of adulthood. And from there on, he goes back into the past and starts thinking about his relationship with that woman. He's calling her M. And there are passages where he's thinking about her, then he comes back to the present and thinks about this idea of what happens to men when they lose an important woman in their life. What really happens? How does it pain them? What kind of loss is it? So going back to the past, he imagines that he met M at the age of 14 when they were at school, and they are sitting next to each other. He's asking for an eraser. What she does is, she has an eraser, she cuts it into two pieces, she gives it to him, and they start connecting from there on. But then he also tells, this is how I wish I would have met her. But this is not exactly when we fell in love. This is not exactly what happened. It's just his thinking, his imagining. It's a sort of a wish he has when he thinks of her. He thinks of her as somebody who he would have liked to have met at the age of 14. And then he thinks more about her, that there was always this 14-year-old girl in her. There was also the adult side, but there was also this 14-year-old girl, and he found her really beautiful. But coming to the more important part, their relationship, which was much later, and it It lasted 2 years, and during which time, in those 2 years, they met on and off, probably around 2 or 3 times a month, and that's it. They were together for 2 years, then never spoke to each other. And even when they were together, it's not that they were living together the whole time. And then when he's thinking about all these things, we find something interesting in the writing of Murakami. He brings up certain comparisons, certain ideas. For example, the idea of a sailor. He says, sailors, they take your women away. Sailors, he's using a term for men who would take or steal your woman away from you, and you would lose your woman to those sailors, he says. So basically, this character, he was a bit insecure about the woman, that he was constantly thinking that he would lose his woman, M that is, to another sailor, to another man. And there was that, and there was also something that naturally happened, just the way things worked out sometimes, that the love blossomed, and then it went away and departed their ways. And it should have been okay, it should have been normal. People meet, they part ways. But then, especially at this point in his life, when he's much older and he's hearing about her suicide, that makes him think, feels a much bigger loss now. It's because he has lost her for the second time. And in this case, it's forever. And that really hurts. But as the theme of the story of the book is, it's about men without women. So the whole focus is on what is happening to the man, what is happening to his psyche, because the woman is gone. So whether she has died or wherever she is gone, it's kind of irrelevant in the context of the story. What the writer really focuses on is the state of mind of the man when he loses his woman. So let me narrate a short passage when he's thinking about this idea of men without women. He says, "Suddenly, one day, you become men without women. That day comes to you completely out of the blue, without the faintest of warnings or hints beforehand. No premonitions or forebodings, no knocks or clearing of thoughts. Turn a corner and you know you're already there. But by then, there is no going back. Once you're round that bend, that is the only world you can possibly inhabit. In that world, you are called men without women. Always a relentlessly frigid plural. Only men without women can comprehend how painful, how heartbreaking it is to become one. You lose that wonderful west wind. 14 is stolen away from you forever. 1 billion years should count as forever. The far-off, weary lament of the sailors, the bottom of the sea with the ammonites and calicants, calling someone's house past 1 a.m., getting a call after 1 a.m. from a stranger, waiting for someone you don't know somewhere between knowledge and ignorance. Tears falling on the dry road as you check the pressure of your tires. So that's the life he's describing for this archetype of men without women. It's a painful journey. And then he introduces this really beautiful concept, which is something that a man, when he's with a woman, he's in love with a woman, he enters a whole new world. He learns about new music, he learns new things in his life, and becomes a different person. So all the world that now exists for him existed because of that woman. That is suddenly taken away from you. So it's like the whole world collapses, whether the memories or the music or the things that you've seen with her, places that you've been to, all those things come and they haunt you. And this is something he describes in one paragraph towards the end. He says, "That's what it is like to lose a woman. And at a certain time, losing one woman means losing all women. That's how we become men without women. We lose Percy Faith, Francis Lai, and 101 strings. And we lose her beautiful back. I used to rub M's back with my palm, in time to the soft triple beat of Henry Mancini's version of Moon River. Waiting round the bend, my huckleberry friend." But all of that has vanished. All that remains is an old broken pieces of eraser and the far off sound of the sailor's dirge and the unicorn beside the fountain, his lonely horn aimed at the sky. So a lot of the things that he's describing, whether he's unicorn, the songs, and all those other things, it's a kind of a memory that he has had with M. So all those memories suddenly become horrifying, or they're dead in some ways, and all of that haunts you. So that's really the idea of men without women, which he summarizes beautifully in this short story. As you can see, there's not much of a plot, and it leaves you with more questions than any other answer. You don't find a specific conclusion here. In fact, in none of these stories you'll find any conclusion. It's just somewhere in the middle. There's no starting or ending. There's no linear plot. Nothing like that. In fact, the same thing happens when you read Hemingway's collection of short stories called Men Without Women. There's not really specific linear narratives. It's just few things, few scenes that happen, and in that scenes the writers, both these writers, they have captured this theme of men without women. And in almost every story you'll find this sense of loss, whether it's a lover or somebody else. It's just that there's a woman in your life and you lose her. What happens then? And as I said, it's nothing dramatic happens, nothing conclusive happens. It's just that life goes on and you see the other side of it. The transition happens when you were with a woman and then that woman is no longer there. So that's what the book or the story is all about. And I'm sure when you get a chance to read it, you're going to enjoy the writing. On a side note, I wonder if there's a book called Women Without Men. And if it's not there, I'm sure it would be a fun read too. I'm sure it'll be quite exciting. What would women be? What are they like when they lose a man, an important man, a lover probably, a really important figure, male figure in their life? What happens to them? How do they go through this loss? And that'll be again an interesting idea. I'm not sure somebody has worked it out, but it'll be interesting if somebody attempts that. So with that, I'll take your leave, and I'll catch you next time with another book. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you'll keep reading and keep following this podcast. Thank you very much. I'll catch you next time.